Hello, this is Addi, and today I'll be teaching you about Photoshop. And this video is going to be for absolute beginners, so even if you have no knowledge on how to use computers in general, you'll still be able to perfectly follow along. So when you open Photoshop for the first time, this is the page you'll be seeing. This is the home page, and to get into the workspace, you click this PS icon here, and we are here. This side, these are the panels. The top here is the menu bar, this side is the option bar, and this is the toolbar. This side contains all the tools you'll be using, and this side is the canvas. So let me import an image here, and to do that, you click the file here and click open. The shortcut is Ctrl+O. So let's select a random image and click open. So we'll change few settings here because I'm using the mouse, and we'll go to edit, preferences, tools. So we'll tick all these boxes here, and what happens is we can use the scroll wheel on the mouse to zoom in and out. To zoom in on the keyboard, the shortcut is Ctrl and plus to zoom in, and Ctrl- to zoom out. To fit the image onto the canvas, the shortcut is Ctrl-0. Now let's talk about the layers, and this is the background layer. The first image you import into Photoshop is your background layer, and you can unlock it by clicking that lock icon and lock it back here. So let me place other images on it so that we can get deeper into some of the functions of the layer. So let's select the wall first and place it here, and let's place another object. So to place an object, you go to File, Place Linked, and select the object you wish to place into your Photoshop. So I want to add this barrel, so I'll click the place here. And we can use this corner here to resize in and out, and use this check mark here to commit or cancel. So you can as well drag and drop an image. So here's an image of a cat I wish to add onto my canvas. So I'll click and drag it and drop it here. And here we have the image of the cat as well. So let me commit and Ctrl-0 to fit the image onto the canvas. And here we have the layers. So what happens is the layer that is on top appears on the foreground. Let's move the barrel on top, and then you see what I mean. So once the barrel goes on top of the cat, it goes behind. So now the cat is behind the barrel. So to hide the barrel here, you can press this eye icon here to hide it, and press it back to unhide it. If you wish to make this thumbnail bigger, you right click at this side and change the size here. So let's make it medium. Now if you want to see only the layer, let's say you want to see only the cat layer, you bring the mouse here, you press and hold Alt on your keyboard and press that icon so that you'll be able to see only the cat. So let's undo that by pressing Alt again and clicking this eye icon to bring the rest. If you want to move the cat layer, usually this auto select will be on. So when you try to move an object, even though the layer here is selected, once you click and drag, this barrel move. You see that the barrel layer is now selected. Ctrl-Z to undo what we just did. So you need to uncheck this so that when you click a layer and you try to drag an object, it will drag that particular layer. Talking of move tool, let's get back. So the first tool is the move tool, and that is what you use to move any object on the canvas. So let's say the barrel. If you want to move the barrel, we first select that layer that contains the barrel. With our move tool selected, we click and drag. So that's how you move an object on the canvas. So we want the barrel and the cat to go behind the wall. So what we will do is, with our barrel layer selected, you press and hold Control on our keyboard and press the cat layer, click and drag it to the back of the wall. And now we have the barrel and the cat behind our wall. So let's select the wall layer and decrease the opacity. This is where you decrease the opacity, click and drag it, and now we can see what is behind our wall here. Let's turn the wall off and Ctrl 0 again to fit the image back onto our canvas. So let's say we want to put a van here and make this van look like it's coming out of this building. That means this side of the image needs to be at the top, and then the van will be between this wall and this wall. So let's try it. Ctrl 0 to fit the image onto the canvas. Let's go to File, Place, and choose the image of the van we wish to use and click Place. So we have the van here. To move it about, you already know, we select the move tools here and move it to this position, which is okay. So now we want this side of the wall to be on top. So what we need to do is to select this portion, and let's use the second tool here, which is the selection tool. So let's turn the van layer off for now and get to the background layer here. So let's duplicate the background layer, and the shortcut to do this is Ctrl and J. So the Ctrl J duplicate any layer, and let's make a selection. So with our selection tool and that particular layer selected, let's click and drag to make a selection of this area. So this tool here is the layer mask, and it hides other portions of the image outside the selection. So let's press the layer mask and let's look at only that layer. So let's hit Alt on the keyboard and press this eye icon. So as you can see, only the selection is visible on the canvas. Let's use Ctrl Z to undo that. So now let's move the van layer between the two walls as we discussed earlier, and let's bring back the van layer. And as you can see, the van looks like it's coming out of this building because we copied this side of the image and place it on top of the van layer. So let's select that portion. Let's select the move tool and move that portion, and now you understand what is going on here. So Ctrl Z to undo, Ctrl Shift Z to redo. So Ctrl Z to undo, and this is what we have here. So let's move this barrel and the cat to the side, and to select an object on a canvas here like this, you press and hold the Control key and select the object, and it will automatically be selected here. So let's say you want to select the cat from the canvas here. Evidently the barrel is on top of the cat, so you are not seeing what is behind. So you can right click and let me right click again, and you see that the cat is visible here, and you can choose it, and as you can see, it selects here on the layer. So you can click, hold and drag to move the cat about, and Control left click to select the barrel layer again and drag it to this side. So when you see this drop down arrow here, it shows that there are subtools under that particular tool. So you can right click to see the subtools, or long press that particular tool to see the subtools beneath it. So that's the selection tool. We have the rectangular, elliptical, and you can explore some of these tools yourself. So the next tool is the lasso tool. So this lasso tool is like a free selection tool. You can click and drag to make a selection, and let's click the background layer, which is where this object is located, and Control J to duplicate it, Okay, so because the layer is locked, we won't be able to do that. So let's unlock the background layer and Control J to duplicate that portion, and V is the shortcut for the move tool here. So V on your keyboard and click and drag it about, and that's how you make a selection, duplicate and move part of an image about on your canvas. Now let's move to the next tool and let's look at the crop tool. As the name already suggests, you know what the crop does. So you can click and drag to crop any part of the image you do not want, commit and cancel. So let's cancel this. Let's move to the next tool, Ctrl 0 to fit the image onto the canvas, and let's look at this tool here. And these tools, you should explore them yourself. So let me delete this layer, and you can click, drag and drop it onto this bin here. Ctrl Z to undo, or hit the delete on your keyboard, and that's the simplest way to do that. So with the background layer, let's duplicate the background layer. So Ctrl J. So usually I do this when I want to try something out with that particular image, and once I'm okay with it, I'll just continue my work. But if I'm not satisfied, I'll delete it and get back to the original image. So to increase the size of this brush here, you can use the bracket close on your keyboard to increase the size, or bracket open to decrease the size. So let's increase the size here and see what this tool does. So when you mark any portion, you'll be able to remove it using these tools here. So all these tools here does similar things, and I think you should explore them to see how they work. Now getting to the brush tool, so let's create a new layer, and you click on this plus icon here to create a new layer. So this is a new empty layer, and let's get to the brush tool here. You can click and paint, and you'll be able to brush around your image. So Ctrl Z to undo this. Let's get to the van layer here, and let's create the layer between the van and this background image here. So let's click this icon here to create a layer. To decrease the size of the brush is bracket open. To increase the size, bracket close. And you can use the right click to change the size of the brush here, and the hardness as well. So you can change the hardness to something like this. So let me decrease the size a bit. And the opacity of the brush, you can change the opacity here as well. So let me undo this, Ctrl Z to undo. So with a new layer here, let's paint a shadow here, and as you can see, we have a nice shadow here. And let's decrease the opacity a little bit here. Let's get to the eraser tool as well. You can use the eraser tool to clear part of the, let's change the hardness a bit so that it will be soft. And as you can see, we have a van coming out of the building with some shadow. Let's turn off this layer and see how it looks like. Let's increase the opacity a bit, and I think this is perfect. So let's move to the pen tool. So the pen tool is used to make precise selection of an area. It's like marking that area before you make a selection. And let's make a quick demonstration. Let's get to this side here. Let me click, and let me click this side as well. So when you drag, you'll be able to curve. I'm not sure you are seeing it because of the color. So if you are zoomed in like this and you want to move about in the image, you press and hold the space bar on your keyboard, click and drag, and you'll be able to move about in your image. So I'm still holding down the space bar and clicking, left clicking on my mouse to move about in the image. So let me undo this here, Ctrl Z to undo, and let me click this side as well and drag it. Let me come to this side, click and drag it. Let me click this side as well and click this side, and these tools, you need to explore them yourself, then you'll be able to learn more. So let me click this side as well and end my selection here. So I'll right click and go to make selection, and let me leave these settings here and press OK. So let me come to the layer on which this side is located. Ctrl J to duplicate that selection onto a new layer here, and whilst I'm holding the Alt, I can press this eye icon here to see the selection I've made. So let's move on to something else. Let's go to File, Open, and let's open one of this image here. Okay, let's use the background first and open, and this is a beautiful background. Let's place a model here and see how it works. So let's go to the place link. Let's select this image here and place it here, and we wish to change this background to this background here. So let's use this selection tool here, which we didn't talk about earlier, which is the object selection tool. So once you bring your pointer onto the image, you'll be able to see that it detects the elements in the picture. So you can click and wait for it to process. And after that, you can use the Ctrl J to copy and duplicate the portion of the selection onto a new layer by hitting Ctrl J. So let's turn off this layer here, and we have a perfect composition here. So let me go back to the move tool and move it a little bit. And as you can see, we have a very nice composition. Now, if we wish to make adjustment to the color, brightness, or exposure, we need to come to this side of our layer, which is the adjustment layer. Once we click it, we'll be able to see hue, saturation, vibrance, exposure, and some of these tools you need to explore. So let's click the hue, saturation, and let's tune the hue a little bit. And as you can see, it's affecting the whole image, but what we want to do is we want it to affect only the model. So we need to clip this adjustment layer to our image of the model. So we'll come to this point between these two layers, press and hold the Alt, and as you can see, this arrow appears here, and then we'll left click to clip it only to this particular layer. So now let's turn off this adjustment layer and see how it looks like. So we can see on and off, and we'll be able to make much adjustments to how we want our model to look like. So let's increase the saturation a bit, but I guess the original image is okay anyway. Now, in case you wish to change the brightness or the color composition of this whole canvas, you can just go to the adjustment layer here and choose any of this. Let's choose vibrance for now, and you can increase the saturation or the vibrance, and that's how you can make basic compositions here. And this is very important, so you need to explore these tools here. So let's get to the blend modes here. Let's create a solid color here, and let's choose this color. See this color and press OK. So these are the blend mode. Let me close this one for now. So to close any panel, you go to this side here, press it, close tab, and it's gone. You can go to this side. These are the blend modes, and then once you move your pointer, you'll be able to see how it looks like in real time. So let's say I want something like this, lighter color. Let me select it and decrease the opacity, and as you can see, we have a poetic image which looks like a book cover. So if we want to copy all the elements on this layer into one picture, you can hit Ctrl Shift Alt on your keyboard and E. So this will copy everything on every layer and merge it onto a new layer here. So let's get to the eye icon here, press Alt on the keyboard and press this eye icon, and all other layer is turned off, but this particular layer is turned on. And as you can see, that's our image, and everything is blended into the image now. So let's add a text. So we have the text tool here, and the shortcut for the text tool is T. So let's write something here by clicking first and then type what we want, and Ctrl A to select all. And I want to increase the size of this text here. So we come to this side here, click it and drag it to increase the size, and commit with this check sign here, and zoom back, Ctrl minus, go to the move tool here by clicking it, and with our layer selected, we'll be able to move this text here. Let's put it somewhere here. Then let's go back to the text tool by hitting T on the keyboard, and let's continue typing. Let's drag this to this side with that layer selected. So this is a new layer. So with that layer selected, so if you move away from the text, you see this icon here, which means you'll be able to click and drag your text. So you can now click and drag it to this side here, and Ctrl A to select all. So let's align it to the center by clicking this, and let's drag it back to this side. Now let's decrease the size of this by going back to this side here and decreasing the size. Let's drag it and make the color black by going to this color palette, clicking and changing the color. Now I want the spacing, now I want to decrease the spacing between the afro hair and the lav. So Ctrl A to select all, click this icon here, and this is where we'll be able to decrease or increase the spacing. So let's make it something like this. And another way to add your text, you can click and drag, and then we'll see this default text here. You can as well decrease the size here and change the alignment once again. So let's let it get closer. So now let's increase the thickness of this text, and now we will press and hold the Ctrl on the keyboard and click this so that it will be selected here. And let's select the text tool again, click it, and Ctrl A to select all, and we can change the thickness here. Let's drag it back to this side. We can as well change other properties at this side if it's available. So now we have this here. And now if we want to create a block background here, we can select the rectangle tool here and select the rectangle tool, click and drag, and as you can see, it's on top of that text layer. So we'll click and drag it at this side here and place it at the back as we discussed earlier. Go to the move tool, and now we have a very nice cover image here. So let's get to the top layer here again. Let me close this once again, and let's select all by selecting the top layer here and get to the last one here. Whilst I press and hold shift on the keyboard, I'll select that layer and group it by hitting this group icon here. So let me click it, and then we have a group. So now we can turn it on and turn it off. We can click this sign here to expand it or collapse it. We can move the whole group once our move tool is selected and the auto select is deselected. We can click and drag the whole group here. So Ctrl Z to undo that. So now we have an image here, which is a billboard. We wish to put this image here onto the billboard. But the next thing we will be doing now is to convert this group to a smart object, and I'll explain that. So to convert any group or any image to smart objects, you go to the end of the layer here, right click and convert to smart objects. So we will be able to move this layer around freely. Ctrl Z to undo this. And if we want to edit any component of the layer, we will double click the inside of the layer here, and then it will open a new window here. So let me double click, and as you can see, it opened a new window here. So we can edit the components of the layer here. Let's say, let me change this to Afro. Let me move it to the middle here. And Control S to save. So once you save it, if we come back to our initial window here, you will notice that it will then appear here. So let me undo that by pressing Control Z on the keyboard. So what we need to do now is to create a shape. Select the rectangle tool here and let's click and drag to create a rectangle. Now let's convert it to smart object. First, let's close this panel here. Now let's right click this empty space here, convert to smart object. Yes, and I'll Control T to adjust the perspective. So whilst holding the control on the keyboard, we can click the side here and drag it to fit the perspective. We can as well decrease the opacity here so that we will see what we are doing. Whilst holding the control, we can click the edge here and click and drag it to this side, and we'll do the same for this end as well. So let's commit and increase the opacity once again to 100. And as you can see, we've covered the billboard nicely. So let's get back to the other window where our image is. But before we do that, let's double click this layer here to open the smart object of our rectangle. And let me close this for a second. So close tab group. And let's get back to the background window here. Let's click it. And whilst that layer is selected, the one that's contain all our components, with the move tool selected, let's click and drag it onto that smart object layer here. Now let's resize by pressing Control T on the keyboard. Let's zoom out by using the scroll wheel on the mouse. Get to the corner here, press Alt on the keyboard to resize it proportionally into our image. So something like this. So this side, we'll press Shift on our keyboard. Whilst holding the Shift, we'll click and drag this side to skew it. And we'll do the same thing for this side as well. So now we can press and hold Shift again for this side and click and drag it to fit. Or let's undo that by pressing Ctrl Z. Or we can press and hold the Shift key and the Alt key at the same time so that we'll be able to resize it proportionally to all angles. So now we can click this check icon here to commit and Control S to save. And let's get back to this image here. And as you can see, the image appears on our billboard here perfectly. Now let's explore more tools. Let's get to the menu bar here. Now I want to merge both layers and duplicate it onto a new layer, but still keeping these two layers here. So Control Alt Shift on the keyboard and pressing E whilst holding those keys. And let me close this tab group once again. And now we have a duplicate of these two layers merged here. So now I'll press and hold the Alt key on the keyboard and click this icon, and as you can see, we have only this layer revealed and nothing changes because it's the same component. Now let's duplicate this layer once again by pressing Ctrl J on our keyboard. Now let's get to the menu bar and add some noise, add noise, and I think 25 is okay for me. No, I think it's too much. And I think something like 18 is okay for me. So I'll press OK. And I think I like this for now. So now I want to add a little color grading. So I'll come to the adjustment layer here and select solid color. And I'll choose something like this. I think this is fine. And press OK. So now with that layer on top, I'll come to the blend mode and change it to something like lighter color, and let me decrease the fill a bit, and I think I like something like this. So to see the original image, we can come back to the background layer here, press and hold the Alt on our keyboard and press this icon here, and we'll be able to see the before and after. Now I want to crop my image, so I'll hit the C on my keyboard, which is the shortcut for the crop tool, and click this side and drag it, click this side as well, and this is how I want it to look like. And now I'll commit, Control 0 to fit it onto my canvas, and this is what we have now. Now to rename our layers, you go to where the names are and then you double click and you can and now to save our work as PSD file. PSD file is the file that we'll be able to open another time when we open Photoshop or send it to someone else to work on some of the components for us. So to save it as such, we go to File, Save As, and PSD will be selected by default. So that's the first one here, PSD. And you can also save it as PDF for printing purposes. So now we want to save it as PSD. So we can save it as and then we can now click save and check this, and that's how to save the PSD file. Now if we want to save this work as an image, we'll go to File, Save a Copy, and the drop down here we'll click it and select JPEG or PNG depending on what we need it for. But now let's save it as JPEG and let's name it as Billboard Comp, and let's save it. And adjusting this, you either decrease the quality of the image or increase it. So let's leave it at 1 and press OK. So now we have our image here. Click, and now we have this beautiful composition here. Let me close this tab now. Let me close the other ones without saving, of course. So this is the home page, and everything we do will appear here whether we save it or not. To clear it from this side, you can go to File, Open Recent, and Clear Recent Files. Now everything is gone and we have a clean and fresh home page. So let's get back to File, Open, and open another image. Let's select this one and open it. So now we have this beautiful image here, and I wish to add a canoe onto this river here. So I'll go to File, Place Linked, select this image of the canoe and place it. Now I'll commit. So I want to select only this boat. So what I'll do is, with my layer selected, I'll go to the object selection tool here and click it, and make sure the object selection tool is selected. And once I bring my pointer onto that object, it will be able to detect the object that is in the image. So I'll click it and wait for it to make a selection. By the way, this animating portion of the image is called matching ant. Let me select the move tool. So this is the matching ant, and let me zoom out for you to see it clearly. So now let me select the layer mask here, and as you can see, we have the boat on the river. With the move tool selected, you can click and move the boat about to any position we wish to place it. And I think this side is fine. So let me click the background image and let me create a new layer here because I want to create a shadow. So let me select the brush tool here, and this is the foreground and this is the background. The foreground color is black. We can change it to any color we wish, but I think the black is fine for now. Then press OK. And with my new layer selected, I'll select the brush tool. Let me change the size of the brush to something like this size is okay. Let me decrease it a bit. Yeah. So let me get back to the layer here. Let me zoom in, and whilst I press and hold the spacebar on my keyboard, I'll left click to move about. So let me decrease the brush a bit by pressing the bracket open on my keyboard. So now I'll decrease the size of the brush even more with the bracket open on my keyboard. Repaint again, and we have a very nice shadow here. So let me change the opacity by decreasing the value here. And now I want to blur the shadow, so I'll go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, click it and change the value here, and as you can see, it looks very good now. So I'll press OK and Ctrl 0 to fit the image onto the canvas. So these are some of the basic tools in Photoshop, and in my next video I'll be explaining more of the tools and how to use them by creating more compositions.